You may never have thought of yourself as a person who has genius residing within you. You may have thought that genius is a word reserved for the Mozarts, Michelangelos, Einsteins, Madame Curies, Virginia Woolfs, Stephen Hawkings, and others whose lives and accomplishment have been publicized. But keep in mind that they share the same essence of consciousness that you do. They emanated from the same power of intention as you did. They have all shared the same life force animating them as you do. Your genius is in your very existence, awaiting the right circumstances to express itself. There is no such thing as luck or accidents in this purposeful universe. Not only is everything connected to everything else, but no one is excluded from the universal source called intention. And genius, since it's a characteristic of the universal source, must be universal, which means that it's in no way restricted. It's available to every single human being. It certainly can and does show up differently in every single one of us. The qualities of creativity and genius are within you, waiting your decision to match up with that power of intention. Changing your energy level to access the genius within you. Higher energy is the energy of light, which is a way of describing spiritual energy. The 7 phases of intention are the ingredients of this spiritual energy. When you shift your thoughts, emotions, and life activities into these realms and deactivate the lower energies of the ego, the God force within you begins to take over. It's so automatic that it travels faster than your thoughts. This is why your thoughts about how you did it are so bewildering. The higher energy level actually transcends thought, moving into vibrational harmony with the source energy of intention. As you release ego-dominated thoughts, which convince you that you're doing these amazing things and you are responsible for these unbelievable accomplishments, then you begin to tap into the power of intention. This is where the genius that you truly are resides. I'd like you to consider what may seem like a radical idea. Genius can show up in as many ways as there are human beings. Anything in any field that anyone has ever accomplished is shared by you. You're connected to every being that has ever lived or ever will live, and you share the same exact energy of intention that flowed through Archimedes, Leonardo da Vinci, the Virgin Mother, and Jonas Salk. You can access this energy. At the deepest level, all things and all people are composed of vibrations organized into fields that permeate the entire structure of the universe. You share these vibrations, and you are in this field. The starting point is knowing and understanding that this level of creativity and functioning called genius resides within you. Then begin to deconstruct doubts about your role here. Make a commitment to raise your energy levels to vibrate harmoniously with the field of intention, despite attempts by your ego and other egos to dissuade you. Expanding your reality. Pay attention to yourself in ways that allow the expansion of the infinite possibilities that you're potentially capable of. You may decide, as I have, that repairing an automobile and surfing in the ocean aren't what you're going to enjoy doing. You leave these activities to others, and you use your genius to engage in pursuits that please and attract you. Expand your reality to the point where you pursue what you love doing and excel at it. Involve yourself in the high energy levels of trust, optimism, appreciation, reverence, joy, and love. That means love for what you're doing, love for yourself, and love for your genius, which allows you to immerse yourself in any activity and enjoy the process of experiencing it fully. Trusting your insights. The process of appreciating your genius involves trusting those inner flashes of creative insight as being worthy of expression. Never, but never regard any creative thought that you're having as anything other than a worthy potential expression of your inner genius. The only caveat here is that these thoughts must be in vibrational harmony with the 7 faces of intention. Inner thoughts of hatred, anger, fear, despair, and destruction simply don't foster creative insights. The low-energy, ego-dominated thoughts must be replaced and converted to the power of intention. Your creative impulses are real, they're vital, they're worthy, and they crave expression. The fact that you can conceive of them is proof of this. Your thoughts are real, they're pure energy, and they're telling you to pay attention and get that connecting link to the power of intention polished up through living at different levels than you've accepted as normal or ordinary. At these levels, everyone is a genius. Appreciating the genius in others. Every person you interact with should feel the inner glow that comes from being appreciated, particularly for the ways in which they express their creativity. A core theme which strengthens the flow of the power of intention is wanting for others as much as you intend for yourself. Appreciating the genius in others attracts high levels of competent energy to you. By seeing and celebrating the creative genius, you open a channel within yourself for receiving the creative energy from the field of intention.
Well, when I was 19 years old, I took out a little notebook, and it was one of the first things I wrote down for this book that I was to write 40 years later. And I wrote a note to myself. It said, "Dear Wayne," and I still have it, "don't die with your music still in you." And it became a theme in my life that all of us show up here into this world. We are intended here by a source from which all things are intended. Everything comes from that source. And everything that you needed for this physical journey was in that moment of your conception and even before. But most of us have let go of that dream. Or we don't know how powerful we are. When I was in the 3rd grade, I came home from school, and I said to Mrs. Scarf, which is the lady whose home we lived in, she had 52-some children living in that home, I said, "What's a scurvy elephant?" She said, "A what?" I said, "A scurvy elephant." She said, "Where did you hear that?" I said, "Well, I heard Mrs. Poole, who was my 3rd grade teacher, telling Mrs. Smith, who was the principal, outside of the classroom that Wayne Dyer was in her classroom and that he was a scurvy elephant." She got on the telephone and she called the principal, and the principal said, "Oh, that's Wayne. He gets everything mixed up." She didn't say that he was a scurvy elephant in her classroom. She said that he was a disturbing element in her classroom. And I think you have to understand that becoming a scurvy elephant or a disturbing element is a part of the process of not dying with your music still in you. That there is something that you showed up here to become, just like there was something that allowed you to grow into this body that you're in. The same force, the same field of intention that intended you here to be in this body, in the shape that it is in the size that it is, in the color that it is, in the shape of its eyes, in the color of its hair, whether you have any or don't, whether it falls out or doesn't, all of that. It was all intended here. And also everything that you were to become. And there is a sense inside of you, someplace in a very quiet place, an inner sense, an inner Tahiti, an inner island of peace that knows. You know that you're not this body that you're in. You know where it's going. You know it showed up from nowhere. Nowhere. And when it went from nowhere, it showed up in now here. Nowhere. It's all the same, just a little question of spacing. So now you're in now here, most of you. And you look around and you look at yourself and you watch your body go through its motions, and where the hell do you think it's going? Back to nowhere. From nowhere to now here to nowhere. But while it's here, there is something burning inside every one of us. And all we have to do is understand that strangest secret. And the strangest secret is we become what we think about. Our thoughts are the magic elixir. I remember being in that orphanage, and a snowstorm would come, and there were 2 snow shovels in the basement of that house. And I took that snow shovel that was downstairs. There were 2. One had the edges all curled up, and you couldn't make much money with a snow shovel with edges that were curled up. There was another bright, shiny one that Mr. Scarf had made himself. And I used to go down there when it would start snowing, and it seemed to snow a lot more in those days than it does today. And I would sleep with that snow shovel. And I would go outside at 5 o'clock in the morning, wake myself up, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would shovel everybody's walk on Tucker Street. Everybody. I didn't ask if it was okay and would you like me to and could I and maybe and so on. I just took the initiative and I went out there and shoveled their snow. And then I went back later that morning with my best little Oliver routine because I was cute. It may not look like it now, but I was then. Cute little blonde hair, and I had little, and I would stand there, and I would just tell them that I shoveled your snow for you this morning. And sometimes I get a nickel or a dime. I even got a quarter a couple of times. Doesn't sound like much, but that's $4,000 in today's money, okay? And it wasn't like there was something in here that said, this is what you do, and you act upon what it is that you feel in here, because that thought that you have is something in the Course in Miracles that says, when I take this microphone to speak, and I'm being introduced as Gary was introducing me, I repeat a line from A Course in Miracles. And the line that I repeat says, if you knew who walked beside you at all times on this path that you have chosen, you could never experience fear or doubt again. You couldn't do it if you had a knowing that you weren't alone. If you knew it from in here with that burning desire. And it is that connection, it is the ability to go and connect to that.
That if you are not grateful for that which shows up in your life, you will block its entrance into your life. And if you're not generous with what does show up in your life, you will also block it. And so the ways to create this attitude of gratitude and this attitude of generosity are to begin a practice, a daily practice of being grateful for all that shows up for yourself. That's the first thing. Just keep in mind how lucky you are to have anything that you might have. So the first thing that you do is develop an awareness of yourself as a recipient rather than a victim. You are a receiver, and you are in the act of having more show up in your life, and you are claiming that for yourself, not because you're selfish, but because you are entitled to the abundance of the universe, since you are the universe. And then secondly, I would practice a silent expression of gratitude whenever you start to see your desires manifesting from the universal source. Just tiny little indications inwardly that you are grateful. Thank you for allowing this to show up. Whenever a little coin shows up, just picking it up and putting it in your pocket and saying thank you. It's a symbol of all of the abundance that has shown up in my life. Then I would recommend that you daily become a person who's willing to tell those around you how much you appreciate them. Just simple little things like holding your spouse, not for just a little kiss, good morning or good night, but just maybe an extra 15 seconds of a squeeze and just, gee, it's really nice to have you in my life. I'm really grateful that you and I are married. I'm grateful that you're my lover. Or to your children, I really am fortunate and blessed to be your father, or to have you in my life. Or even the sales lady, or even the waitress, or even the flight attendant. Thank you. I really appreciate your consideration in bringing me the fork I asked for, or putting the glass of water in front of me. Whatever it is, just little indicators of your appreciation. And then I'd be very thankful and avoid complaining as much as possible. Don't complain, don't explain. A good rule to keep uppermost in your mind. One of the things I do each day is I begin the day with an expression of gratitude and thanksgiving. Just a simple little statement. There are some people who get up every morning and say, "Good God, morning." And there are others who get up and say, "Good morning, God." I'm one of the people who's in the latter group. I say, "Good morning, God," not "Good God, morning." And I'm grateful every morning that I wake up, that I got another 24 hours, that I got through the night, that I had a good night's sleep, that I have a bed to sleep in, that I have a family, that I have my health, that I have whatever it is. And I'm thankful for that. And expressing it just not in a phony way, but even if it's done privately, it gives you that attitude of gratitude that allows the flow of energy to come into your life. Also, it's important to be grateful for all that you don't have, and for the struggles, and for the opportunity to transcend some of the things that you have perceived to be limitations, to transcend some of your addictions and some of your behaviors that aren't as harmonious and loving as you'd like them to be. Without those, you couldn't get to a higher place. And keep in mind always, as you're working on this attitude of gratitude, that the nature of thought is to increase, because the nature of everything in the universe is to increase, and the universe is made up of this energy, the same energy that allows you to think. So if the universe is expanding, and it's made up of what's in you, then your thoughts are also expanding. And if your thoughts are on things like, I don't feel very good, or I'm not happy, or negativity in any way, then that will be the thing that continues to expand. On the other hand, if your thoughts are on how grateful you are, then that will continue to expand. And of course, as you become more grateful, you are feeling more connected rather than separated from that which is your source. It's also important to practice generosity in your life as a part of this principle. And that one of the things to do is to recognize that this is a way of being that definitely can be developed. You can, in fact, practice being generous. And generosity is a way of showing that you have trust in this divine intelligence. And stinginess and hoarding are a way of you saying, I don't think there's enough, I better hang on to it. And it's a disbelief in the abundance of the universe and more of a recognition of scarcity. And when you have a scarcity consciousness, it is scarcity that shows up in your life. And when you have an abundance consciousness, it is abundance which shows up in your life. Think of the things that other people do for you every day. Think of the things that you couldn't do without the help of other people. And become aware of the internal resistances that arise within you when you have an impulse to give. Remember that you're one human being connecting to another in a spirit of love and kindness and generosity. And this idea that, oh, I better not tip too much, or I better be very careful about how much I give because then they'll expect more. The more of this that you give away, the more that shows up in your life that you allow to flow through you, the more you encourage that which you would like to have manifested to show up for you in your life. It's one of the laws of the universe. It's simply stated as what goes around comes around. And as if you allow it to come around, it will continue to go around. If you stop it with your stinginess and your hoarding, then you stop the flow. And also it's important to practice being able to receive, just like it is to be able to give. Just listen to this. One breath in, I receive. I can't keep that breath. I have to give it back. Every breath you take is a giving and a receiving. It's the same way with the food that you eat. It's the same way with everything that we have in our life. We have a food chain that is natural to the survival of everything on the planet. There is a giving and there is a giving back. And all that we give it back in the form of fertilizers. We give it back in the form of our own bodies, which ultimately becomes tomorrow's food. Everything on the planet, in this moment, as Ken Wilber says, is tomorrow's food. Giving and receiving. And the fact is, if you don't know how to receive, if it's difficult for you to accept from others, then you are blocking it just as much as your unwillingness to give. Giving, receiving. Receiving, giving. It's the way of the universe. When you learn to trust in yourself, what you're really doing is trusting in the very wisdom that created you. And this key word here is trust. The use of the word trust could be used synonymously with faith. This faith to move mountains, this faith to be able to create things for yourself without having that little smidgen of doubt in there. Remember, as it says in Proverbs in the Old Testament, as you think, so shall you be. Your thoughts, of course, create your reality. And the application of this is that if you're doubting, if you're thinking about even the littlest amount of doubt, then that will be what you will work on. You will act upon that inner world of doubt, and you will manifest the result of doubt. And if you doubt something, then obviously, as Shakespeare said, our doubts are our traitors. William Blake had a wonderful line. He said, if the sun and moon should ever doubt, they would immediately go out. So it's almost like you have to have the faith of the sun and the moon, that you are a divine being that has this divine intelligence within it. And as I talk about trust, it's appropriate to look at the characteristics of this thing that has many names. The God force, the spirit, the invisible intelligence, the soul, the consciousness, the awareness. Whatever name or label that we place on it,
it has certain characteristics. And this is a very tough area for us to master, because our egos, the part of us that are rooted in the physical domain, really strongly believe in our separateness from each other and from God. And because we are so attached to our separateness, it is very hard for us to now begin to trust in a unity kind of consciousness. A consciousness which says that I am much more than that which I observe. I am much more than my troubles. I am much more than that which I notice. As the noticer, I have this divine capacity. So what I'm talking about here is an intelligence or a God force or a divine awareness, whatever you want to call it, that is in all things. It's in that tomato seed, it's in the banana seed, it's in you, it's in everything. Everything starts with an idea, and this idea is not in the physical domain. To come to trust in this really means that you have to transcend the ego part of you and say, I have got to learn as an individual, as a particularized part of this divine intelligence, I have to learn about and adopt an intelligence that doesn't know how to particularize. I have to adopt and be a part of an intelligence that is everywhere. That's what universal means. Universal intelligence means there is no place that it is not. Okay? Now, if there's no place that it is not, it means that it is in me. And if it is in me, and there's no place that it is not, it is also in everything that I process or perceive to be missing from my life. It's also in that. So if I would like to be able to manifest abundance of some kind, or a relationship, or a healing, or a seller for my home, or a promotion, or whatever it is, the intelligence that I am talking about, this universal divine organizing intelligence, that is the highest part of, that represents the highest part of you, is in the very thing that is missing. So here's a key line to learn about learning to trust. When you learn to manifest, you are doing nothing more than manifesting another aspect of yourself. You're manifesting another aspect of yourself. And when you get to this place where you're beginning to trust in this wisdom that created you, you're beginning to understand what this force is like and how different it is from the ego, which is the part of us that has separated ourselves from that force and has believed in our own sense of particularization or individualization. Remember, to develop the kind of trust that I'm talking about, you have to be able to process this intellectual fact that there is an intelligence in the universe that doesn't know how to particularize. It doesn't know how to individualize. It has no preferences. It is everywhere at the same time. It has no judgment. It is like electricity. It's just there. It's everywhere and in everything. And being in everything, it's in you and everything that you would like to manifest. So what you're doing as you manifest is just getting another part of yourself to align. When you learn to manifest, what you're doing is you are aligning your intention with divine intelligence. You are aligning your intention with divine intelligence. You are not creating. You are not bringing something from another world into this world. We don't do that. Everything that's in the world is in the world. We just combine things and we move things around that are already here. It's all here. The creative process is really nothing more than shifting around what is here already and aligning ourselves with it and redistributing it. It is always flowing. It never changes. And most important, it never dies. It never dies. When Lao Tzu, the writer of the Tao, 5 centuries before Christ, was asked the question, "What is real, Master? What is real?" His response was, "That is real, which never changes." Somehow, you have to figure out a way to know the part of you that never changes.
There is no there. It's all just being. So there is no being here, because here implies the existence of there. As Anita writes, quote, "When we pursue externally, we seem to see the world as being competitive and limited, and we use external measures to judge our achievements. To me, herein lies the illusion. There is no limited supply of beingness. We seem to measure our beingness by the achievement of goals. I don't, and neither do most people who are happy. My point is to shift your views. See the magnificence in your being, whether you are rich or poor, physically impaired or not, with the one you love or not, and so on. I am now just focused on being, and am now the creator of my life. That is, the artist of my life." Anita concludes, quote, "The only thing you need to learn is that you already are what you are seeking to attain." I am inviting you to live this way, first in your imagination, be it. Then live your life in the way St. Paul suggests, treating those things which do not exist as though they did, and surely they will become your reality. Your reconstructed I ams. Run through as large an inventory as you can of the things that you would like to define your life. Then make the shift in your imagination from an I am not or I am hoping to become to I am. You want what follows I am to be congruent with your highest self, which is God. Beginning with your inner dialogue, simply change the words that define your concept of yourself. Don't discuss what you're doing, because involving others in your I ams invites their ego to assert its self-importance. Redefine your self-concept by choosing the words that you opt to place into your imagination. Try this rewording of your inner world as a beginning step to accessing the assistance of your higher self and fulfilling your desires. In the book of Joel in the scriptures, the Lord's advice is in harmony with what I'm saying here in this chapter. Quote, "Let the weak say, I am strong." Joel 3:10. It is truly as simple as these 7 words from the Bible advise. If you say, I am weak, you defile the name of God, that is your highest self. How is it possible for the creative source of the universe, the source energy responsible for creating worlds, to say, I am weak? As I quoted previously, Jesus said, "Is it not written in your law, I said, you are God's?" So how can you, as you now operate in your life from your highest self, ever even think such a thought as I am weak, let alone define yourself in such a blasphemous manner? By thinking I am strong, you place in your imagination the tools you need to achieve your pronouncements, and you align with the source of all, with strength instead of weakness. Align yourself so as to synchronistically invite the guidance that is unavailable when you declare, I am weak. Instead of I am incapable of getting a job, shift to I am capable. Similarly, replace proclamations of I am not able to live in peace with I am peace. I am unlucky in love is replaced by I am love. I am unworthy of happiness becomes I am happiness. The words I am, which you consistently use to define who you are and what you are capable of, are holy expressions for the name of God, the highest aspect of yourself. Break lifelong habits of unwittingly besmirching this holy name. Discontinue using pejorative labels to cast aspersions on your holy self. One of the many great lessons of the I Am discourses is to always make your very first consideration to your divine self. In fact, adoration to it will allow you to rise to previously unimagined heights. You must make your outer self accept the unlimited power of your inner presence. Expanding your inner presence. It is impossible for me to overstate the significance of using these 2 words, I am. They have transformative energy to guide and direct the highest power in the universe, revealing you as a God-realized being.
It matters not how long you've been stuck in a pattern that's kept you from fulfilling your highest ideal of yourself. By shifting so that you restate who you are in your imagination and choosing to live from this perspective, you will, as Neville suggests, achieve that transformation. This is true whether you've been a drug addict, a chronic stutterer, enmeshed in poverty, riddled with illness, chronically lazy, unlucky in love, intellectually inferior, or whatever you've wished you weren't. Here are a few examples. With addictions, affirm, I am sober, I am perfectly healthy. With stuttering, affirm, I am in perfect command of my speech. With poverty, affirm, I am prosperous. With illness, affirm, I am well, I am perfect health. With laziness, affirm, I am in possession of unlimited energy. With love, affirm, I am love, and I am in a loving relationship. Intellectually weak, affirm, I am a genius. You might be thinking that this is all just self-delusion, and just saying I am doesn't make it so. It's probably natural to feel skeptical if you believe that what your senses tell you is your only reality. The scriptures offer some words that may help you overcome your cynical viewpoint. The opening words in the book of John in the New Testament are, quote, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. 13 verses later, there's this phrase, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. John 1:14. What do you suppose the phrase, and the Word was God, means? You are more than your sensory awareness. You are also your own spiritual divinity, which is impervious to those five senses. God proclaims in the same scriptures, as I noted in the previous chapter, my name is I am. Those two words are now in your imagination in such a way that they align perfectly with God. This is your beginning. Steadfastly retain and repeat I am, and then you will discover the reality of, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Yes, the words I am. Calling upon this name and placing it in your imagination and living from this place literally joins you with the source of power that allows you to become all that you've affirmed, as well as to create miracles. Begin by being willing to use these divine words as the name of your highest self, God. That is the inauguration of the you that will live a wishes-fulfilled life, as long as those wishes are in alignment with the source of being, which is love. Love for yourself and your magnificence. Love for all of God's creations.
It's important to understand that each and every one of us represents God or Spirit, revealing itself here and now on our planet. So in what direction are you moving? Being in spirit is a direction we take rather than a destination to be reached. Living our life in spirit requires us to determine that direction, and we do so by noticing our thoughts and our behaviors. Thoughts that are in spirit reflect a vibrational alignment, moving us toward our ultimate calling. And obviously, this is the direction we want to take. Once we begin to observe our thoughts, we realize that there are many times we're going in the opposite direction. When we catch ourselves with conscious effort, we can make a U-turn with new thoughts. For example, blaming something we call evil is thinking in the wrong direction. When we see things in our world that we label evil, what we're really seeing are people moving away from their source, not individuals in the grip of an evil power. To become inspired on a daily basis, we must be able to quickly identify any thoughts that are moving us away from our source and then shift the direction. We need to bring love to the presence of hatred, as St. Francis advised. When we're consumed with thoughts we've labeled as evil, we need to notice that we're headed in the wrong direction. It's difficult to comprehend because we're accustomed to blaming our problems on external forces, such as evil or hatred, but we know better. We can make that U-turn by using the same energy within us that has us traveling away from God. Evil, hatred, fear, and even illness soften with love and kindness when we're in spirit. When we make that U-turn, we make an alignment correction and move back into the space of spirit in our thoughts and actions. A Course in Miracles quotes Jesus as saying, "If you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing that we are alike. If you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind." Being inspired is truly being like your source. If you're not, then your source is politely waiting for you to do something as simple as change your mind. All bodies emerge from the soul and return to it. The visible emerges from the invisible, is controlled by it, and returns to it. That's a quotation from Lau Russell. This is clearly a purposeful universe with an intelligence supporting its creation and continuing evolution. And we're pieces of that intelligence by virtue of having emerged from it. Consider, for example, that scientific analysis of even a droplet of blood reveals all of the characteristics in our entire body's supply. The percentage of iron in that droplet is proportionately the same as in that which flows through our entire body. So it's easy to agree that the drop of blood is identical to the source from which it was removed. Now think about what happens to that droplet of blood when it remains in the state of separation. It can't fortify or heal us, and it can't circulate freely. Disconnected from its source long enough, it will simply dry up, decay, and disintegrate, even though it contains all of the physical properties necessary to survive that its original source does. I believe that our transition from spiritual source to physical beings made up of particles is similar to that bit of blood in that we contain all of the same properties as our source. But unlike that droplet, we're never completely separated from our source. I know that there are no accidents in a universe directed by a source energy that creates endless real magic in the form of its creations. I know that we agreed to move from the world of spirit into the world of particles and form, to come forth at the exact time that we did, and to leave when we've agreed to do so. I also know that we decided to bring joyful perfection to this world and to share that godlike energy with everyone we encounter here on earth.
What I suggest is that you know that every step along the way that you're making, along the path, all the obstacles, all the things that you're going through at this moment, that what you do is you start to process them a little bit differently. And process them not in terms of why do I have to do this and why isn't my life working out or why are things so negative and so on, but process it a little differently in that why am I choosing this, why am I participating in this now, what do I have to get out of this, what is the lesson in it for me. And as you do that, you find yourself moving more and more towards the gate, and then when you come up to the gate you just sort of slam it shut behind you and you never look back again. And that's when you know that you're not alone. That's when you know that for whatever help that you are looking for or whatever guidance you're seeking or whatever road you want to travel, that there's another world other than the world of the five senses. And whatever it is that you will need to be able to accomplish what it is that you're here for, what your purpose is, what you're about, is going to be instantaneously and readily and easily available to you the minute that you allow yourself to go through that gate.
Well, I think there are levels of consciousness. There's what I call ordinary human consciousness or ordinary human awareness. And there's something that in the East is called Siddhi consciousness or Christ consciousness in the West. Ordinary human consciousness is a consciousness in which I identify who I am on the basis of what I'm doing, what I accomplish, how much I collect, who I'm better than, and so on. A key word there is separation. That is, there's you and there's me, and where you stop and where I start is what divides us, what separates us. Then there's another kind of consciousness, which is one in which says, like the Native Americans used to say, no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. There's an awareness that there's a oneness, that we are all connected, that on a round planet there's no choosing up sides, that all of us are connected in some way that's perhaps invisible, that we can't see with our eyes or our senses, but we can feel with our hearts. And when your truth, I don't mean your truth about what you write down, but I mean your truth about what you live, is something that goes beyond your own personality and your own physicalness, you reach this level of Siddhi consciousness. And it is here where in the New Testament it says through St. John, quoting Jesus, that even the least among you can do all that I have done, and even greater things.
But how can a person truly practice consciousness of spirit, if that's what you mean?
Yeah, consciousness of spirit is to treat everyone out there as if they are connected to you rather than as if they're separate from you. Your separation from each other, you begin to eliminate. Your separation from the planet, that you're not on this planet to push it around. That are connected to everything that, if God is that which is everywhere at once, not a person but a presence that is in all things, that means there's no place that God is not.
And if there's no place that God is not, then God is in you, and also in all that you would like to attract into your life. And so consciousness is really realigning your inner attention with this awareness that you are connected to everything. There was a story of a guru who was just a little child in India, and everyone knew that he was an incarnation of God. I mean, he was living at this, what they call an avatar level. And the people said to him, they were trying to trick him, and one of the people in the tribe said, "I'll give you an orange if you can tell me where God is." And he said, "I'll give you 2 oranges if you can tell me where God is not." There is no place that God is not. Once you know that, you are connected to God. We were talking off camera before about this great teacher in India, in Puttaparthi, named Sai Baba, who has this gift of manifestation, materialization, just to move his conscious hands. And it's called the gift of fish and loaves in the New Testament, where you think about feeding people, and food just appeared. And he had in 1986, he had his 60th birthday, and 1,100,000 people came from all over the planet to see this holy man who had this great gift of higher awareness and higher consciousness. And one of the reporters from one of the magazines thought that they would trap him. And they asked him the question in front of all these people, who he had granted an audience to, "Are you God?" And Sai Baba looked at him and said, "Yes, I am. And so are you." He said, "The difference between you and I is that I know it, and you don't."
Do you know it about yourself?
Absolutely.
When did you first realize this?
I don't know exactly when it was, but it was at a very low time in my life.
Did it humble you, or did it elevate you?
It humbled me and then elevated me. You have to have that fall in order to raise yourself to a high level.
Run the risk, do you think, in your mind, of arrogance with anybody watching such an outlandish statement, or do you know in your heart that those who have open ears and open eyes will see that you're coming from what you call your center of truth?
Well, I think one of my teachers was Abraham Maslow. I was blessed to know him in lifetime. And he said, in order to reach these higher levels of awareness, you have to be independent of the good opinion of other people. Mm-hmm. And if that's perceived as arrogance or ignorance, it's okay. I mean, I've been out in public, I've grown up in public over the last 25 or 30 years, and been on all the different media shows and written about it and had reported on. And I found I just can't do it on the basis of what other people think. In this last book that I wrote, The Wisdom of the Ages, I profiled 60 people who were great teachers, from Buddha and Jesus and Lao Tzu to Omar Khayyam and Keats and Shelley and Yeats and Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa, 60 of the greatest leaders, philosophers of all time. And one of the things about all of them is that they didn't do what they did on the basis of what other people out there might think. They were living, they were detached from outcome. That's what Maslow, these people were detached from outcome. That is, they weren't doing what they were doing because it was going to bring them a reward, or because people were going to buy books, or because they were going to make a lot of money. They're saying, doing what they did because they felt it in their heart.
And Peter Dunov said there are different kinds of love. He said there are basically 3. There's human love. And human love is a love that changes, and it's a love that varies. So this is a love that most of us know. It's, I love you, but not as much because it was Valentine's Day and my birthday, and now you forgot to get me this, and you came home late, and you did that, and so it changes and it varies. I love you a lot today, not so much as yesterday. It's up and down. It changes. I love you. I hate you. I love you. I hate you. You're going. This is what we call human love, the love that we have become accustomed to. All right, and it's a love that I aspire to get past. He said the second kind of love is a love that's called spiritual love. And this is a love that never changes, but it does vary. This is the only way you can describe, the best way to describe this love is that the love you have for your child. I have 8 children, and it doesn't change. It's always there. I've got some that have done very disappointing things. There are some that have done wonderful things, and on, but it just doesn't change. It doesn't matter what they've done. You all know that, all of you who are parents, or even who had parents. So that pretty much includes everyone here. But it does vary. Not so much as yesterday. It's like, you're not following the rules, and you're disobeying this, and you're not and you're not dressing whatever it might be. And so it's like it's a love that it varies. It's up and it's down, it's up and it's down, but it never changes. And then there's another kind of love. It's the love I aspire to live. It's a love called divine love. Divine love is a love that never changes. Divine love is a love that never varies. It's all there is. In the unveiled mysteries, the attitude of one who wishes to work in conscious cooperation with the ascended host should not be, I wish I could go to them for instructions, that is, go to the angels or to God or whatever and get instructions, but rather I will so purify, discipline, and perfect myself, become such an expression of divine love myself, that the work that I do will automatically be drawn unto them. I will love so constantly, so infinitely, so divinely, that the very intensity of my own light will open the way for them to accept me. That is, you have to love the way God loves us. The great poet Hafiz said, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Just think what a love like that can do. It lights up the whole world. This is a different kind of love than human love and spiritual love. This is a love that is what we are. It's a love that you will experience when you leave this body. It's a love that in the Bhagavad Gita they talk about combining the opposites, transcending the dichotomies, bringing oneness. Oneness is a concept that we cannot know as human beings other than when we are in silence, because God's one and only voice is silence. It's only through meditation that you can even approach this, because everything in the physical plane has a duality, has an opposite. If I said to you, what's the opposite of joy? You would say sadness, sorrow, depression, whatever. If I ask you to imagine joy that has no opposite, that's all there is. If I ask you what's the opposite of love, you might say fear, you might say hate, you might say rage, whatever. But if I ask you, imagine a love that has no opposite, you will know that when you take your last breath. When I read the poem from Hafiz at the end, you will know that. I aspire to it now. It's like, how do you get to a place where there is no opposites? Let's just say you lived on the sun, right smack on the sun, okay? Would you ever have a concept of darkness? Because the opposite of light is what? Dark, right? But on the sun, would you ever have an experience of darkness? Why? Because when you are with the source of all light, there is no opposite. There's only light. When you are with the source of love, which is God, or divine mind, or the Tao. In the Tao, they say, the opening line of the Tao says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So the minute you name it, you've lost it, because now you have the name and the thing, that's two-ness.
Rumi said, this ancient Persian poet, brilliant, beautiful poet, he said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. It feels like bewilderment. It feels like awe. It feels like, even as I think about it now, I can feel myself tearing up behind my eyes, because only I know what is going on behind my eyeballs. It feels like so glorious and so sweet and so trusting, so knowing. You know, there's just this powerful knowing that you're not alone. There's this, that it's like there's a safety, there's a sense of that you're not alone.
And behind the feeling we're talking about here is this feeling of aloneness for so many people who are lost in the world, that I don't have like a connection to something greater than myself. I've come to believe that who I am is what I do and what I have and what other people think about me, and who I am is separate from everybody else, and who I am is separate even from what I'd like to attract into my life, that I'm separate from all the things that are missing, and I'm separate even from God. And that there's a place within me that knows that I'm not separate from any of that. That if there's no place that God is not, or that source is not, or the energy that provides, that is always giving and always creating is not, if there's no place that it is not, then it has to be in me. I know that. And if there's no place that it's not, and it has to be in me, it has to be also in everything that is missing in my life, or that I think is missing. It's there too. So that in some mysterious, invisible way, I'm already connected to everything that's missing in my life through something called spirit. And when I recognized that I'm not here as this human being having a spiritual experience, when you recognize that your essence is that you are a spiritual being, having a human experience, not the other way around. When you really get that, I mean, not that you can say it and it's clever, but when you know that who you are is this essence, you don't see, there's no other, there's no them. There's nothing outside of you. You're connected to everyone and everything. As the Native Americans, you'd say that no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. Your body wasn't made by your parents. We like to think that our bodies were made by our parents. That's because you look a certain way and all of that. But if we take the tiny little drop of protoplasm that created you, and we try to find out its origin, and we take it all the way back to subatomic particles and reduce it, we find out when we put it in a particle accelerator and rev it up at 250,000 miles an hour and collide it, and we open it up, there's nothing there. That you came from the invisible, you came from source. It's the spirit that gives life. So that once you understand that this body of yours is a creation not of human beings, but it's a creation of God. It's a creation of source. It's a creation, it came from nowhere and an invisible source and manifested into the world of the physical. And so it only reacts to truth, because it was created by truth. So once you lie, this is an ultimate lie detector test. That's why I always say we could have saved $93 million with President Clinton. It's like, come on. Did you have sex or didn't you? Let's get over this, But now you're using an instrument not of human beings. All of our bodies are divine creations, and they only react to truth with strength. The truth that when you go weak, you're going against your Tao nature. Your true nature is not revenge. Your true nature is not hatred. You came from love, and you have to stay in that state. And once you learn that, once you get that, having that demonstrated could change your life. Just that moment could change it forever. People ask me, what is your biggest confusion about humanity? It's like man's inhumanity to man. This recognition that we are something beyond ego. And we don't, we have a divided world, a world that believes that, if you're male, you're different than if you're female. If you're Muslim, you're different than if you're Christian. If you're born on one side of the river, then you're different than the person who wasn't. And we've taken on all of these ego beliefs. And I think the new generation, this generation, it's, their job isn't to end a war. It's to end war. It's to end the concept of war. And the concept of war comes out of this ego identification of who we are, and a belief that I am what I have, and I am what I do, and I am what others think of me, and I am separate from everyone, separate from God, separate from what's missing, this idea of separation and so on. And we will inch by inch move towards a place where people will begin to recognize their connection to each other rather than their separation, or we'll have to just start all over. We'll have to start it over. As Einstein said, if the next war that is fought, he said, after this one will be fought with sticks again. We'll have to start all over again. We'll have to start all over. And
It's really about slaying this ego, this massive ego thing. You can see it in our foreign policy. You can see it in the way that we treat it. You can see it on television. You can see it in all of the ads that you see for having to take pills for everything. And that's what I feel my work is about. What my life is about now is ending the concept of hatred and separation.